Hey, all my creative friends. This is Laura. I'm a self-taught portrait artist, which means I did not go to school for it. I did not want to be a starving artist, so I went to school for something else, let me tell you. But my head's off to all those who are making a living at it, doing the darn thing. Kudos. But I post a lot of my artwork on Facebook art groups, different places, and I've had members ask me if I teach or do tutorials, and of course I don't. I have some time lapsed videos on Facebook and other places, but I don't do any teaching per se. And usually when somebody asks me that, I kind of jet them over to uh, some really nice content creators on YouTube, people who do those free tutorials, and tutorials that have helped me over the past year really improve the quality of realism in my drawings. So I got to thinking, maybe I should do one myself. Instead of shooting people other places, I'll do it myself. So I'm here at Hobby Lobby buying some materials that I'm going to recommend for you. This is the first installment of my drawing tutorials. I'm tickled to death. I'm such a nerd. But if you are wanting to improve the quality of your artwork, if you're a beginner, or if you're wanting to go beyond just the simple contours and really give some depth and dimension to your drawings, then this is where you want to be. So let's create something really nice. In today's lesson, I'm going to show you how to draw this realistic eye. So get your materials together and let's get into it. I started off with just a basic outline of what my reference photo is. And if you're not comfortable drawing freehand, you can do what I did. Look in the back of this eye and you'll see some lines. It's because I created a grid both on the reference photo and on the drawing paper. And I just kind of mapped in where things were. Now, I don't generally do this. I generally do freehand with a lot of detail. But if I'm going to do a commission or it's really important that things are exactly where they need to be, I will go ahead and grid that thing out. I am not too proud to grid. So don't be hard on yourself because you've got a lot to do to really create this realistic image. What I'm doing right now is laying down graphite, which is just another word for, pencil lead. It's not actually lead, it's graphite. And what I'm doing is using a number 2 pencil, which is also called an HB pencil. And I'm just laying down in light circular motions a layer of graphite. And an HB pencil or a number 2 pencil is just an old-fashioned grade school pencil. Remember when your teacher said, get out a number 2 pencil? Well, that's what this is. But I will call it an HB pencil from here on out. But when I say just HB, I'm referring to a number 2 pencil. Right here, I'm using a number 4 charcoal pencil. And just like with the graphite, I'm laying it down gently in circular motions, not being heavy-handed at all because you can always add layers, but if you put stuff down too quick and too hard, it's going to be kind of hard to backpedal from that. So I'm just gently adding some darker values to the pupil, which is going to be the darkest area in your eye drawing. I'm using I think it's called a tortilla. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Don't quote me on it. But a tortilla or a paper stump are drawing tools. They're made of paper and they're just blending tools. And I'm using that to push the charcoal into the paper. The paper I'm using is called Bristle. It's Bristle Vellum, Vellum. And it's a really nice quality paper. I don't use just any old kind of drawing paper. This bristle board accepts a lot of layers, and you can layer and layer and layer, move it into the texture of the paper, and it's really going to give you some nice control over what you're doing. Now, if you noticed earlier, once I laid down that first layer of graphite, I took some tissue, just regular tissue, and just kind of blended that into the paper, just kind of smoothed it out. Just a number of ways to blend. So right now I'm working on the iris, or the colored part of the eye. And again, I'm using an HB pencil, using a light touch, putting down just a layer of graphite. And I hold my pencil kind of toward the opposite end of the point of the pencil. And this gives me a little more control of how much pressure I put on the tip of the pencil. And I'm adding the graphite using the tip on the side. I'm not using the pointed edge. I'm using the side, which gives me, again, a little more control over what I'm laying down and the quality of the pressure that I'm applying. Again, I'm going in with tissue and blending that out. And if you notice, not only do I blend it out in the iris, I also blend it out towards the whites of the eye. The eye is never solid white. It generally has gray tones or even blue tones, depending on what's being reflected off of it, but it's never just this solid white structure. Now I'm going back in, and this is the number 4 charcoal pencil. I'm reclaiming some of those lines that I lost a little bit when I blended with the tissue, and I'm just reinforcing those lines again just to make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be. Now, some of these lines that I'm adding back, I'll allow them to stay dark as some dark values to suggest, shading or whatever. And some of it I will blend out. This is a number 4 graphite pencil. Like the HB pencil, I'm using it to just add a soft layer in circular motions of graphite to the paper. But notice how much darker the number 4 is in comparison to the original HB pencil. And I kind of go back and forth with different grades of pencil. The 4B pencil is a softer grade of graphite, which means the pigment that it puts down is going to be a little darker. And notice that I'm adding, again, a little more of the HB to different areas because some of it I want to be dark, some of it I want to be lighter, and I control that. I can determine that by deciding which pencil I'm going to add where. Again, going back and reclaiming some of my lines that I lost when I blended stuff out with the tissue. And a lot of people might look at this eye and say, okay, we've got the shape of it, we've got some color on the iris, we've got the pupil and a little white dot that could represent a reflection, and they would just call it a day. But no, 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 no. There is so much more that we're going to do to make this eye pop and pull it up off the paper. Again, I'm going in with an HB pencil, and with this layer, I'm kind of mimicking the values that I see in the iris, where it's dark in some areas, lighter in others, different shapes. I'm just trying to communicate the shapes that I see in the reference photo. Then I'm going to blend that out again with tissue. Again, adding more to the whites of the eye. And I never use the pencil directly on the whites of the eye because it's going to make it a lot harder if I do that to backpedal, to remove with erasers those areas that need to be wider and create a gradient effect. You'll see that in just a few minutes. I'm also trying to capture shapes that I see in the iris in comparison to the reference photo. Notice how it's already starting to take shape, starting to look less flat. And all I'm doing is copying what I see in the reference photo. I'm not being super creative. I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm not using imagination. I am looking at the reference photo and I am creating what I see with various tones and shapes. This is a soft, flat makeup brush. I love makeup brushes for blending, and it gives a really nice gradient, a soft transition from one value to another. Gives me a little more control than the tissue paper does. Also more control than what the paper stump or tortillon does. It's like painting. Yeah. Now notice that I'm moving a little of the excess that accumulated on the brush and adding that to the whites of the eye. Still, I haven't used a pencil at all on the whites of the eye. Going back in, reclaiming those lines. More soft blending. This is a pencil eraser. It sharpens just like a pencil to expose the eraser portion of the pencil. And this is a kneaded eraser. And what I'm doing with these two tools is just lifting off some of that graphite that I smeared across the whites of the eye. Again, the whites of the eye aren't just this flat white surface. It has irregularities, different tones, and I use an eraser to create that effect. Sometimes I use an eraser just as much as I use pencils. Notice how the white of the eye is starting to take on a dome-like effect. Again, back to my number 4 graphite pencil, just to reinforce some lines that I don't want to be as heavy as the ones created by the charcoal pencil. Going in again with a stump or a tortillan, in this case a tortillan. Just kind of blending out those lines a little more precisely. Adding a little bit of value to the fold over the top eyelid and then below. Now, if you look at the lid below, you can see how unnatural that looks. The lid doesn't just lay on the eyeball like that. There's actually a water line and then skin that's in front of that, but we'll create that in a minute. Right now, I'm just picking up different areas of graphite and charcoal that I've laid down with an eraser. Excuse me, I can't talk today. And again, I'm just copying what I see in the reference photo. Some areas are white, some areas are mid-tones, some are dark, and I'm just creating that with both the pencil and the kneaded erasers. And all by itself, just by me doing this and following what I see, it's creating just this look, this appearance of reflection, of almost glistening. All right, we're going to work on the area under the eye, the little pocket of skin, the bag under the eye, as some people call it. And we're just laying down a layer of HB pencil. We're going to add some to the area above the top eyelid. And what this is going to do is simulate skin. You know, no matter what tone of skin you're trying to represent, it's all in the layering. The skin that I'm doing right now is from someone who's Caucasian, and it's not going to just appear white. It's just going to be various values of of what, gray, of HB pencil. I'm not sure how to articulate that, but you know, it's still going to look like a Caucasian person when I'm done. And then, of course, the darker the skin tone, the more layers I use, and the darker value of graphite pencil that I use. And I even add charcoal powder to really, really dark skin tones. Now, right now, we're going to do the water line, which is that area right in front of the eyeball. But before you get to the eyelashes, it's that moist looking white to pink area that the lower eyelashes protrude from. I bounce a lot, or bounce around a lot on my drawings. I think I must get bored with one area and then I bounce over to another area. And it works out for me because when I move around on the image and go back to where I started, I see things a little differently. I even walk away from something I'm doing and come back in 5 or 10 minutes. And it helps me to see things that I didn't see earlier because I was staring at it too long, and it gives me a fresh perspective. Right now, I'm just going to add some lower eyelid lashes. These tend to be shorter, more sparse, fewer in volume, or less dense in volume. Let's say it that way, less dense. And I'm using the number 4 charcoal pencil with a really sharp point. I'm using a very light hand. And then when I get nervous, I'll go in with an HB pencil like I'm doing right here, because I don't want to overdo it. I don't want it to look like she's got on gobs and gobs of eyeliner. And then it's going to be hard to backpedal if I put it down too forcefully with the charcoal pencil. You can always add more, always build up, but it's hard to go backward and correct. With the upper lashes, they're going to be longer. They tend to have more volume, more dense. So I make those a little darker. Again, using a very pointed, very sharpened number 4 charcoal pencil. And I never try to represent every single hair that I see. I just give a general suggestion of the direction that the hair is growing in, the density of the hair groupings. Over here, there are little curly, short hairs that I'm just kind of using squiggly lines to represent. And then, of course, I'll go in with my soft makeup brush to just kind of soften that out. And here, rather than just drawing 2 straight lines to represent a couple of wrinkles that I see in this fold, I add, the lines, but then I'll add different values before and after those lines so that it looks more skin-like, has a little more dimension than just flat lines. No flat lines for me. And I'm just kind of tweaking the eye here. In this area, I'm using the number 4 charcoal pencil again, and I'm just drawing in the reflection of eyelashes that are bouncing off this highlight on the iris. It's just a reflection of the top eyelashes, and it's as seen in the reflection of the iris, of light bouncing off the iris. I thought that was a pretty cool effect. And now for my darkest values, I'll often go in with just a really nice black color pencil. It really pushes those darker values, the blacks, and causes the eye to pop. Creates more depth, makes that pupil look more and more hollow. So we went from this to this. So, follow me, like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.